So on Saturday evening of August 1st in central Moscow, a woman arrived at a upmarket Italian restaurant carrying a gift box. She told the security guard out front that it was merely a present for the party happening inside. But when he opened it, it exploded. Now, 3 people died at that scene, 5 in total. The woman carrying the device, the security guard who opened the box, but also a young man named Danny Perediev, a 27-year-old who had fled Russia in 2022 when Putin announced his mobilization, but he returned only a month later. His 25-year-old wife suffered a serious head injury, and they had only been married in Moscow the previous year. Now, this party was actually a birthday celebration. A birthday boy in question, though, being Colonel General Alexander Chaiko, commander of Russia's entire aerospace forces. The man that Ukraine also has spent a lot of time finally identifying and confirming as the lead commander of Russia's Bucha massacre in 2022. Chaiko survived, but his son-in-law did not, and his son-in-law just happened to be Perediev, Danny Perediev, the man who had fled against the own war of his father-in-law. The point of this is that there's a much deeper story than simply this one single explosion on Saturday. It is an underlying theme, a set of explosions, a set of events over the past couple of years which have been gathering in quantity and in momentum and reflect something far more significant about the state of this war, about the shadow war Ukraine is undertaking inside Moscow that most people haven't been paying close enough attention to, but is only beginning to get more and more extreme.
This is The Global Gambit.
How you going, everyone? Welcome back to the channel, where I wanted to just say that at the time of recording, there have been multiple developments amongst some strikes occurring in Crimea. Now, at the time, it's unclear whether it was from Ukraine or perhaps, as we've seen in previous developments over attempts by Russia to intercept such projectiles, that actually debris can sometimes be the cause of such destruction and chaos. I'll be covering that in a later video, so subscribe if you want to see my take on it. But this video, we're talking about what happened on Saturday, the explosion in Moscow. Now, firstly, we have to emphasize a pattern here, an effective shadow war. This restaurant bombing didn't happen in isolation. It is the latest chapter of something that has been building inside the capital for over 2 years. I'll take you through just a few, but there are more, arguably. Firstly, December 2024, Lieutenant General Igor Kirillov, head of Russia's nuclear, biological, and chemical protection troops. He was killed by a bomb hidden in an electric scooter outside his apartment building in Moscow. Ukraine's security services soon claimed responsibility for such an operation. Fast forward a year to December 2025, and Lieutenant General Fanil Saravarov, head of operational training, directorate of Russia's general staff, well, he was killed instantly by a car bomb in Moscow. Ukraine also claimed responsibility. Now we come to February of 2026. Lieutenant General Vladimir Alexeyev, deputy chief of Russia's military intelligence service, he was shot multiple times in his apartment building stairwell by an attacker who was actually posing as a delivery driver. Now, he survived and was hospitalized. Now, in June of 2026, and it's Lieutenant General Damir Davidov's turn, responsible for supplying missiles and artillery to Russian forces. He was killed by explosives planted under his BMW. And then, of course, this Saturday, a gift box in this Italian restaurant, possibly targeting the Russian commander of the aerospace forces. Now, it's pretty clear to me that this was probably the intended target, but of course we don't have confirmation. Ukraine hasn't confirmed that it was the culprit of such an attack, but the theme is, and the trends correlation is pretty strong. Now, at least 15 generals have been confirmed killed since Putin's full-scale invasion. That's more the point we should get at here. 5 lieutenant generals, 7 major generals, 3 former retired ones. These are the men that have been running this war and are being picked off in car parks, stairwells, apartments, suburban streets, although, mind you, not many windows. And so this isn't random. It is a sustained, deliberate, escalating campaign to remove the command infrastructure, the command and control infrastructure of Russia's war machine from inside Russia's own capital, under Putin's own nose. and it is working in ways that go beyond the immediate military impact of each individual killing. Now, this of course reveals a lot about Putin's current grip on power. The FSB, the security services of Russia, have vowed to step up protection for senior military figures, which means right now the FSB is emphasizing that it can't currently protect them. And also, just think about that for a second. The security services of Russia are having to protect military staff and personnel. Kind of warped. And the bigger point is this. I say it on the channel many times, but Putin's power rests on the projection of invincibility. The idea that the Kremlin's reach is so and totally out of reach, and that crossing it has consequences so severe that resistance is futile. Each successful assassination inside Moscow, therefore, chips away at this projection. Not dramatically, not fatally, but consistently. And consistency is how reputations for invincibility die. Other intelligence sources have said earlier this year that the campaign is now exploding tensions inside Putin's own security apparatus. We can see this from the fact that the guy is increasing his own personal security detail to over 800. The man responsible for prosecuting Russia's war in Ukraine can't walk to his own car. He can't answer his door. Not that he ever does. None of his security, none of the Slaviki arguably can at this point. And so think about what that does to decision making, to the morale at the top of the system. It's all well and good talking about the front lines and morale for the Russian military, but if you're losing morale at the highest levels of strategic decision making, to the willingness of the next generation of Russian officers to take their senior positions that are now clearly carrying out a personal cost, well, you're going to be without a capacity to conduct your army soon enough. Essentially, Ukraine has not just opened a front inside Moscow, it has made the act of running Russia's entire war machine personally dangerous in a way that it never has been before. And the FSB, which has spent years presenting itself as this all-seeing apparatus of control, the all-seeing eye, is being made to look reactive, slow, penetrable, and frankly rather pathetic. But here is the specific detail that makes Saturday's attack significant beyond the pattern. If the reports are accurate, and they remain unconfirmed at this point, the intended target was General Chaiko. It's worth sitting on this guy for a minute, because he's not a logistics officer or a training directorate chief. He's the commander of Russia's entire aerospace forces, and the man responsible for the strategic bomber fleet that launches the daily missile rounds that devastate Ukrainian cities. The man Russia has now fired at a record 376 missiles in a month, just July gone. It's more than twice June's total. And critically, the man Ukraine has identified as the lead orchestrator of Russia's occupation and events over Bucha. Indeed, Bucha, where hundreds of civilians were found murdered, tortured, and in some cases executed in those streets in April of 2022. Where the images were so devastating, they permanently changed the international community's understanding of what this war, what modern warfare is now with the power of social media and the internet. A stage, therefore, inside the restaurant reportedly bore the words Alexander 55. Chaiko had just turned that, the event was heavily guarded, but this device, the equivalent to carrying, say, a kilo of TNT, exploded before the woman carrying it even knew what was really happening, before she actually got anywhere where the intended target might have been. The security cordon almost certainly prevented a significantly higher death toll. Chekhov was inside and he survived, but his son-in-law, this chap who fled and perhaps didn't even agree with the war that his wife's father is orchestrating, tells you a lot about the discrepancy and disparities, the realities that exist within Russia. And building on that point, I wanted to say one thing directly here before going further, because I think it matters, and it's an uncomfortable truth, an uncomfortable parallel, but one that is necessary. Now, Ukraine has a right to target the generals running this war. The men ordering missile strikes on Ukrainian cities, responsible for Bucha, they are all legitimate targets under international humanitarian law, as much as are the wild berries facilities that utilize, store, process military equipment, etc. for the Russian war machine. But the method used on Saturday, this apparently unwitting civilian woman carrying a concealed device into a crowded civilian area, well, in the eyes of some, it is a harder case than a car bomb or a drone strike. Now, for what it's worth, take them at their honesty, take them at face value, Russian counterterrorism told state media that the woman may have not known what she was actually transporting, that it was simply a listening device. And if that's true, then it echoes almost exactly another case from a few years ago involving someone known as Tatarsky. She was a 26-year-old woman who ended up jailed for 27 years for delivering what she was simply told was a statuette. Then the method places civilian women at lethal risk as instruments of operations that they didn't knowingly consent to, nor even have any idea what was going on. They are perhaps disillusioned with the war as a whole and are being taken advantage of or utilized for military purposes. Now, targeting Chaiko is legitimate, but the method is more questionable, and Russians are not Putin. The young man who died at that restaurant was not a war criminal. He was someone who had married someone that he simply fell in love with, whether or not it was the daughter of the general in question. Now, the fact that he fled at the notification of mobilization in 2022, one can argue that that's a huge damning indictment to his support and how many Russians actually feel, especially men at risk of recruitment. Or you could argue, if you're more skeptical, that he simply fled because he didn't actually want to face mobilization. I say this not to condemn Ukraine, obviously not. I say it because I think an honest analysis of this war requires being able to hold both things simultaneously: the legitimacy of Ukraine's resistance and the occasional discomfort of how that resistance is conducted. And now that's simply what I wanted to mention. Make your own minds up, but that's what you'll get on the channel. It's not simply all support of one or support of another. This channel is about being objective, even if I have my biases. And so if that resonates with you, then well, you can subscribe, you can support the show however wish you like. But still, let's look at what comes next. The shadow war inside Moscow is not over. Indeed, it's frankly just beginning. If anything, Saturday's attack suggests it's escalating rapidly, from logistics and directional chiefs to commanders of entire divisions. The FSB have said that it will increase protection for these military figures, but that protection has failed on Saturday, and no assurances seem to be making any difference. Whether or not Ukraine's intelligence penetration of Moscow's social and security networks has reached such a level, it means it's genuinely difficult to know what impact it has for the functionality of the state, let alone in the economics, but also in the political. But bottom line, for Putin, the implications are significant. The men he depends on to run this war are increasingly aware that their positions carry personal risk now. The social environments that they move in through, the restaurants, the private parties, everything that is detached from the front lines and what Ukrainians actually get used to, they're no longer safe. The war is coming home. And the state apparatus that is supposed to make all of them look functional and completely fine, and Russia is a cohesive state compared to the broken, war-torn country of Ukraine, it's not working. 9 people have died in Russian strikes on Kiev on the same day as the Moscow bombing. It's important to note that as well. And Russia has fired over 370 missiles, as I noted earlier. So this war continues at the most intensive paces. But inside Moscow, something is also continuing. This quieter, slower, more targeted set of changes, which is incredibly, I think, more impactful in terms of the calculus. Individuals who have a huge amount of power over the entire Russian military and war campaign will be assessing for their own personal security. The shadow war Ukraine is running inside Moscow is difficult to tell just at what rate it will occur yet next. It is escalating, and it is exposing something about Putin's grip on power that drone strikes and fuel queues and stock market collapses or risks to food security never will. The very people running his war are no longer safe in their own cities, and somewhere other people are looking at this and wondering, if we're facing a potential mobilization, how on earth do we actually get out of this? Certainly, the war is only going to intensify over the next few months. And hey, it's August, as we saw 4 years ago with the counteroffensive done again towards Kharkiv. There may be a huge set of developments just down the road. But that's it from me, everyone. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Am I overhyping this one event, or do you think it's the beginning of something bigger? And how do you look at the efforts by intelligence services to get through and change the war from behind the front line, so to speak? Look forward to seeing them. We'll see you on the next one.